That green engine is not Henry. I know this sounds crazy, but hear me out. The reason why that green engine cannot be Henry because of the Railway Series timeline video uploaded by Unlucky Tug. Now you may think, oh, I'm taking his opinion as fact. Well, here's the thing. It said that his video was fact-checked to match what was going on in the Railway Series by Luke Ryan, who kept the studies of Awdry, meaning he would know a lot about Sodor and Awdry stuff, including the timeline he set up for the Railway Series. So, no, this is not his opinion, this is actually what happened in the Railway Series. And in case you don't believe me, well, here's the clip.
Railway Series expert and Teleclin Railway volunteer Luke Ryan generously helped me with fact-checking every date and piece of information I put into this script to make sure everything here is absolutely fact. Thank you so much for your help on this, Luke. Luke knows more about the island of Sodor than anyone else I know, and he currently upkeeps Awdry's study at the Teleclin Railway.
And in this video, it clearly states that the sad story of Henry takes place before Edward's day out.
Later that year, Henry refused to work because of bad weather and shut himself up in a tunnel, refusing to move. Frustrated with trying to make him cooperate, the fat director walled up the tunnel and left Henry there. With all the new, more modern engines coming to the railway, poor old Edward was used less and less, and was eventually left in the back of the shed. Until one day, a sympathetic crew let him out for a run. Edward proved his worth, and was eventually reassigned to odd jobs based out of Wellsworth.
Now after hearing this, you're probably going to ask questions of, oh, then who is this green engine? And if the sad story of Henry takes place before Edward's day out, how come Edward is seen in an illustration of the sad story of Henry, which in order is after his day out? Well, I have two theories in mind. But first, let's go over the first theory. Alright, elephant in the room, Edward. So, people have arguments that the sad story of Henry doesn't take place before Edward's day out because Edward is seen in an illustration in the sad story of Henry. However, since it's confirmed that the sad story of Henry took place before Edward's day out, this is where my theory comes into play. When the sad story of Henry played out, Edward hasn't retired yet, and the reason is because, since Henry is a flawed design as described by Awdry, Edward, a 440, a design of the past that would handle express trains back in the 1800s, would have been kept on due to Henry's steaming problems. It was only when that green engine was loaned and Gordon was purchased, after Henry decided to block himself in the tunnel, was when Edward was used less and less, because once they got a more powerful locomotive, that is Gordon, Edward was immediately forgotten. Until Edward's day out, of course. Now, we aren't given a clear explanation on what happened to the green engine after the three railway engines, or if he was still around in the rest of the series. It's very likely he went back to his railway in either the three railway engines or in Tomlin's Tangent, or after those two books. Now, after discussing theory 1, this is where I get to theory number 2. So this theory is gonna sound bonkers, but here it goes. That green engine probably never existed. And here's potentially why. Being the creator of the Railway series, Awdry stated at numerous times that the illustrations themselves are inaccurate, which means that this green engine doesn't exist. And the sad story of Henry didn't have two bores, but rather one, which is the one that Henry got stuck up in. This could potentially explain why that green engine doesn't have a page of its own compared to 98462, 87546, the three background blue locomotives, and the two red locomotives, because this engine doesn't exist. However, there is some contradictions to this, such as this line in Edward's Day Out.
He lived in a shed with 5 other engines. They were all bigger than Edward and boasted about it.
Which technically means that this green engine does in fact exist. And he was on Sodor until he was sent away back to his railway, and was likely scrapped. To be honest, my first theory on the green engine makes more sense in regards to Edward and to his time being loaned and Gordon's arrival after Henry broke himself up. However, theory 2 does seem very plausible as well, considering that Reginald Dalby did not care how he illustrated the illustrations for the Railway series and didn't really care much for their consistency, unlike Awdry. I remember reading through comments that this green engine could have some relation to the two Henrys theory when it says, since 1922 there have been 2 Henrys, Henry 1 and Henry 2, potentially suggesting that this engine was meant to be Henry but was retconned to be an loaned engine. Which kind of makes sense considering that Awdry would make the timeline later and retcon a few bits here and there, just so everything fits and makes sense, and this goes for the iOS book as well. I also noticed that there was one comment that highlighted an alternate interpretation of this Green Engine named Alaric, and despite my opinion on its basis, the story is indeed interesting, and it could potentially be what the Green Engine was all about. However, we may never know who this Green Engine really is. He could be Henry, who isn't supposed to be there, or he could be some other loaned engine just brought on to help with the railway. But what do you guys think? Sound off in the comment section. I look forward to hearing about your interpretations of this character and what do you think about him. Till then, have a good day, stay safe, and cheerio!